Hi, my name is Travis Wright, and I am a Ph.D. candidate in Theology and Religion at the University of Cambridge.
Travis Wright. Travis, great to see you again here at the Linear Theological Library.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it's great to see you. And you've been in Cambridge, and you were here for a while during COVID, you and your family. I mean, you kind of got stuck over here.
Yeah.
And then you get to go back, but you're getting ready to submit pretty soon, we hope, your thesis, and you'll be doctor maybe next time I see you.
Yeah, Lord willing.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. Now, you've been on with us before, so we're not going to ask you to introduce yourself again, but we're going to talk today about John chapter 1, verse 18, which is part of that wonderful theological prologue that begins the gospel. And there's some really interesting stuff going on in this one verse. So to set this up a little bit for us, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, it's amazing. You've got this rich piece of Trinitarian theology that is yielded by a close reading of the Greek text. And so the payoff is pretty obvious here in this verse.
Yeah, well, some people say you can't really find the Trinity in the Bible.
Yeah.
But I think if you read it well, you can, and you do here.
Yeah.
So why don't you read it for us, first of all, in Greek, and then we'll do a bit of translation, and you can kind of parse out for us your thinking about how this really works.
Okay. Theon, ουδείς εόρκεν πόποτε, μνόγενης Θεός, ο όνης των κόρπων του Πάτρος, εκείνος εξηγήσετο.
All right, very good. Translate it for us.
Yeah, let me give an interlinear translation so we
Okay.
can hear the word order in English. God, no one has seen at all. Only begotten God, the one who is in the bosom of the Father, that one has exegeted, has explained.
As explained.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the Greek word order, but that sounds a little odd to us.
Yeah.
Right? And a modern translation or any translation is going to turn it around and put it a little bit more in the English frame of reference, English word order, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
And everything. So that little phrase, monogenes theos, is a fascinating one. What do you do with it?
Okay, so this is very challenging. My take on this is that there are technical translation equivalents that we should use in English because they capture the theological ethos behind the text. And I'm not sure for us as English readers if we can read it any differently now after centuries of English Bible translations without deliberately subverting or undercutting a particular theological tradition. So my default is just to stay in line with that theological tradition, but then to look at the broader context to think through what John means by this phrase.
So what do you think he means by this?
Well, I think, and this is where the close reading of a Greek text comes in, what John has done is create a contrast in verse 18. And one of the great payoffs of learning to read Greek is actually seeing John's own linguistic choices in his own words. Which, when you're reading an English translation, you do not get to see the author's linguistic choices in every instance. And one of the greatest areas of disparity between Greek and English would be word order. And so that would be the reason, to think through an interlinear translation at the beginning. What John has done is put the word God at the front of verse 18. He says, Theon, ουδείς εόρκεν. And so he says, God, no one has seen. And the left side of the clause in Greek is reserved for changing the topic, for changing the scene, the setting, for placing information there that you want to highlight. And the question is, why is John highlighting the word God? Because he actually does it in the second half of verse 18 as well. There's a parallel between God and between only-begotten God. And I think what he's doing is creating a contrast between these two reference on the basis of a single property, which is monogenes. And the fascinating thing here is, in ordinary vernacular, we talk about emphasis. But in linguistics, emphasis is actually something that's broken down into its constituent members. It's much more complex and rich. And one of the ways that we talk about emphasis that we could be more precise about is to think through focus. Focus is when you take something in Greek, you put it at the left end of the clause in order to highlight it for some thematic purpose. And so here I think we have an example of a contrastive topic and contrastive focus. So contrastive focus is placing something at the left side of the clause. And in the second half of verse 18, you can see you have this structure syntactically that's really interesting. He says, the only begotten God who's in the bosom of the Father, that one has revealed him. And this is an example of what we call a contrastive topic. It just means that John is saying there's God, and then there's the only begotten God. And the interesting thing is the word order changes in the second clause too. So akinos is put in front of the verb, just like theon in the first clause is put in front of the verb. So changing the word order,
okay,
it highlights it. And so this in the second case, you have what's called contrastive focus. And this is closer to what we mean by emphasis. And what John is doing is he's saying there's God, and then there's the only begotten God. And there's no one, and then there's that one. And so he's creating this parallel between the two that provides something really interesting.
And Hebrew parallelism, is that in the background of this, you think? I mean, is that possible?
Yeah. Looking at the prologue, it's so terse. It's so tightly wound. Theologically, I wouldn't doubt that there are decisions at that level that are consistent with Hebrew parallelism. In this specific case, there's an inclusio in literary terms between verse 1 and verse 18. They really answer the same question. So this leftist location in the second clause, the man that I saw at the store last week, he is going to go do, etc. What I'm doing is in some cases I'm introducing a complex referent as a brand new thing. And other times what I'm doing is creating a contrast between two referents. The contrast here, I think, answers a particular question because he just said no one can see God at all. And it raises the question, how can we know God if no one has seen him? The second clause gives you the answer. It says that one has revealed him. And it's the word order that signals to the readers the answer to that implicit question in the context.
Now, the way you've translated this, monogenes theos, the only begotten God, but there are some textual challenges there because some of them say the only begotten Son.
Right.
And are you convinced that theos is the right reading there?
It's the more difficult reading.
Okay.
And I'm following the Nestle Aland here, also the Tyndale House Greek New Testament as well. The more difficult reading is, I think, more likely, and it falls on us as exegetes to think through the complexity and difficulty that reading introduces.
What that means, yeah.
And as I'm saying, if you look very closely at the syntax, you look at the word order, and you look at this contrastive topic and contrastive focus, and you think through the broader structure of what John is trying to say, you see that he's saying God beget God to reveal God, and that's how it is that we can know him, even though no one has seen him. So there's a distinction within God on the basis of one property, which is within God, one who is only begotten. And it connects really well, right, back with verse 1. Because looking at the inclusio in the prologue, verse 1 says that essentially the Word is God, but the Word is not all that God is. And you find the same thing in verse 18. No one has seen God, but there is one begotten within God whom is coming after John the Baptist here, who is the revelation of God.
Really interesting reading of that text. We're grateful for you being here today, Travis. Hope you come back.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
If you learned too much today and your head is hurting, there's one sure cure. That is to share this podcast with a friend. We hope you've enjoyed Exegetically Speaking. If you have never visited Wheaton College, I hope you'll make plans to do so. We have a wonderful campus year-around. And if biblical languages are your fancy, check out our MA and BA programs at Wheaton College, wheaton.edu. Look for modern and classical languages. That's the best place to get started. If you have comments, you have questions, you just want to be in touch, please email us at exegetically.speaking@wheaton.edu. Thanks for all those who make this possible. You know who you are. Until next time, thanks for listening.